What's going on, guys? My name is Brian and this is Bicoastal Gaming. Today we're going to be making a flood build with a weapon that used to be good and then it was not as good, and I think it's back. We're talking about the Rahmas today. So Rahmas in the past has been an iconic torpedo that deals more damage the more you hit. So why, you ask, am I using the Brigantine? The Corvette has 7 top deck weapons, so therefore that's 7 times more damage, right? Well, true. However, I feel the Brigantine brings a little bit better gameplay. I prefer the Brigantine as a medium ship with much better handling, much better acceleration, and much better turning over the Corvette. But the Corvette is a great tool to use for the entire team. The Corvette is a large ship and boosts medium ships around it, enhancing their damage. So this build can be used with the Brigantine or the Corvette, or probably most any builds. If you want to put it on the snow, I'm sure it would work. Maybe not to its full potential, but it certainly has the ability to work there. As we jump into the build, you're going to notice I have a carronade on the front. The carronade is kind of a placeholder. You don't have to use this. You could use a Dahaka. You could use a long gun, perhaps a drowned one. So whatever your style of play is, or whatever your preference is, that is a good place for the front gun. Same with the back weapon. Currently, I have an Endless Requiem here. The Endless Requiem basically gives you a little bit of aim assist. And if you saw my last video, then you see that I have electric damage here to help boost up the damage of the Endless Requiem. I could potentially, especially with the new season, giving you the ability to add healing weapons and boost your other weapons, I could swap this out with a healing weapon. I could swap this out with a carronade. I could swap this out with other long guns. Again, this weapon can be changed to suit your playstyle and your choice of weaponry. The star of the show today is Rahma's Legacy. Now, Rahma's Legacy, as I said prior, deals an increasing amount of damage for every simultaneous hit. So this weapon works good on the Brigantine because it's a flooding weapon. The Brigantine boosts flooding damage and boosts damage to enemies that are flooded. And this weapon is a flooding 3. So we're effectively making a flooding 4 weapon and then amping the flood damage. Because of the beginning event for year 3 season 1 and the opening with the honorless and the fact that you have a lot of little ships spawning around one big boss, I've opted in this case to put on the mythic for Corpse Explosion. Now, again, if you want to do more damage, you could opt for lightning. I'm not a big fan of building builds that have multiple damage types, especially when all of our furniture, and as you'll see later, all of our mastery tree is all about flooding damage. But it's some free damage that you can add onto the weapon if you'd prefer. Going on to our friend the Leopold 3. This is a flooding mortar. It adds 20% flooding damage, 15% damage as explosive. So we have almost 12% damage as flooding, almost a perfect roll. And then we're amping the flood with an increased flood damage. Now, as the recording of this video, long arm's not working. So I opted for our purple perk. We'll go to detailed here, of overflow. Final flooding damage dealt by this weapon is applied as severe, but it also adds 9.6 damage as flooding damage. So we're adding damage as flooding, and so therefore it's probably our second best aside from long arm. And then lastly, we have Corpse Explosion. For similar reasons I put them on the Rahmas, I also put it on this. Now if you look over here, we're doing 84,000 damage flooding. There's ways to increase that slightly at the cost of projectile speed. However, I believe there might be a, let's call it a hidden feature, that projectile speed is not limited to 30 by this, but it's limited to 30 of your furniture. Now, speaking of Rahmas, you buy the blueprint from the woman herself. This means you have to go through the story and you have to unlock your helm and you have to get a little bit upgraded so at least you can produce the material that she requires to buy the blueprint. I would also like to call to attention, Rahma's ambition is different than Rahma's legacy. If we look at the damage numbers here, We are looking at significantly lower numbers for Rahma's Ambition than we are for Rahma's Legacy. See, I caught myself there. Rahma's Ambition does less damage than Rahma's Legacy. But once you get this blueprint, you can produce this magical torpedo that does cataclysmic damage, as it says right here. And when equipped on a ship that makes flooding damage even more lethal, we start talking about 6-digit, sometimes 7-digit numbers of damage. So getting back to our build, I'm going to talk about the armor. I feel like armor has a great variety of choice and kind of says how you just want to play the game. Now, for me, I chose Buccaneer's Oath. I prefer having extra armor after I get a kill, and I'm choosing to use the Mythic to repair severe damage. This one rolled better than the last one. Blood and Gold on this armor gives you 25% more damage and armor for 30 seconds after you sink a ship. Now, if you are really good at not taking damage, the Nocturne Heart is an amazing choice. While you're above 75% health, you increase your damage by 15% flat all the time. That's good numbers. That's going to help. But there is other options out there of armors that you can use that will boost your playstyle. Say you like ramming targets. Maybe you're looking for a little bit of survivability when you go in for that ram on the honor list who has armored 2, and you want to recover some of that health. Maybe Pashaka is your choice. Maybe the Ouroboros. Maybe you want to have a passive healing and some passive severe damage restoration. That's not bad, and these are all good options. So, as I said in my last video, this is your blueprint for a build. You're welcome to change it and adjust it to your playstyle that best suits you. Looking at furnitures, we have the Flood Warden Station. Each consecutive hit increases flood charges applied by 2% and damage dealt by 2%, stacking up to 20% for each effect. Missing a shot will reset the stacks. That can be tough with torpedoes. This build is going to take a little bit of skill, a little bit of practice to master, but when you do, the damage numbers fly off the screen. Like I said, I've hit for 6 digits and I've hit for 7 digits with this build. It is capable of immense damage. Now, as I kind of tweaked to earlier, we're going to increase the projectile speed of our torpedoes by 13% from this piece. And again, we're going to increase the projectile speed by 10% here. And 15% here. And we're doing this all in the name of the Caustic Spall Station. For every 1% increase in projectile speed, we're going to increase the damage of flooding weapons. Now, torpedoes are flooding. We've boosted that flooding. We're further boosting the flooding. We are going all in on flood. And this is, again, PvE. So if you have a boss that's 70% resistant to flooding, this might not be the best bet for you. But if you have a boss that's 14% resistant to flooding, this is going to hit really, really hard. We've also added the Torpedo Works for an extra 19% secondary damage. Again, more flooding damage. I want to take a second to shout out the Night Crew, which is a group of friends that we've got together and made content together, but we're also playing the game, having fun, and building ships and other things. Some of us play No Man's Sky. Some of us play Forza Horizon 6. If you're interested in a group like that, join the Discord. Links in the description below. Night Crew, at least in Skull and Bones, is adopting the sail emblem Setting Sun, because what comes before night? The sun goes down. So here we are at the skill mastery tree, and like I said, it looks very familiar. It probably looks a lot like other flooding builds. I've taken away more survivability and I've added more damage, because who doesn't like sinking things? The fastest way to survive is make sure they can't hit you by being at the bottom of the ocean. So coming up to the top, we kept all the reload speed because damage per second includes how fast you can reload and shoot again. And then we've added damage everywhere possible. And then we've added projectile speed everywhere we can possibly reach. I ran out of points. I'm missing 5%. I feel like that's for the extra 6% reload speed I'm getting here, because these are the 2 points that I have left to remove and move around. This is the extent. I do have a little bit of survivability with these two, but this is after not taking damage for 30 seconds. If you do get a slight hit, these are going to help you and you're going to want them, but you do need the reload time. Now, the other direction you can go is instead of taking the health, you can take the weak point damage and then take this for less points. And that will probably save you and give you this extra bit here and some weak point damage. The problem is torpedoes don't typically hit weak points. Taking our top deck weapon bonuses. So we have torpedoes, torpedoes, torpedoes. And then we're going to take projectile speed. Oh, look, there's 5, 10, 15. There's 20 more projectile speed. We already have 10 here. 15. So we're at 35% plus what we have in the furniture. And then we're going to add some more torpedo damage. I'm not taking the range, so I don't need that extra range. If you're trying to do super long range attacks with torpedoes, you're amazing because I can't hit those. Down this side, similarly, I've taken the 260% flooding damage, and then we've amplified it by another 200. We're also taking the flooding penetration, so for an extra 50%. And then we're going to move over here and try and increase those flooding ticks as much as possible. So we're just increasing our flooded damage and flooding damage. This is an interesting one. The rear of your ship can, and possibly should, have a healing weapon on the back, thus giving you an extra 10% damage. Your other option is, because you're in the brigantine, 12 knots is something that you can easily attain at maybe 2/3 to 3/4 sail, however they call it. This one is, again, some survivability, partially because, yeah, the ship has bonuses to ramming, and you can use it for ramming, and it does very well at it. But at this point, you're so close in, and you're taking damage. You need to get out alive. You're not trying to get sunk. Here's a different one. Blood fueled. I said on my Culverin build, it kills you. Now, if you're firing 4 torpedoes off the side of the brigantine, it doesn't. And it does a lot more damage. However, if you're low health, you need to find a way to heal up before you can shoot. So for that reason, as the general build, you can use this one. But for torpedoes that do a lot of damage in one hit, you can heal yourself as well from 80% to 100%, provided you don't have severe. So as I'm running the brigantine, we're using blood fueled. Now, to showcase this build real quick, we're going to run over to Missouri with whoever's over here. We got 5 people here, and we're going to see how this build actually holds up. Here's a little trick with launching the buoys. Get yourself up to speed. Now you're doing your bonus damage. Launch your mortar. Throw in your torpedoes, and you can veer away. There is a lot of people here, and this is an important part. The bosses scale with the number of people. There's our weak point hit. If you're by yourself for these, you can relatively easily crush through a boss like Missouri. We are in World Tier 4. This is an endgame build designed for endgame bosses. So until next time, thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.